Hello friends, today I will discuss about 8086 interrupts and its applications. First let us see what is an interrupt. So we are generally seeing the interrupts in our day-to-day life. Like for example, when a lecture is being given by the faculty, then perhaps his phone rings, then it causes disturbances in the class. That means it creates an interrupt to the lecture. Similarly, when a student or someone is being studied and someone is studying, then the cell phone rings, then it also creates interrupt. Then you can do one thing, that you can answer the call over the phone and then you can continue your work. Whereas the other case is that you can see there is an other case, that is when your phone rings and at the same time someone is knocking your door. So you need to attend only one task. You first thing which one you attend, whether you answer the call or you open the door. So there you need to give the priority to the interrupt. So select any one, which one is more important to the one. So likewise you have different interrupts, so at the same time you will be having priority to the interrupts. Let us look at the interrupts in the 8086. So 8086, when it comes to the interrupts of the 8086, so interrupts is defined in such a way that it is used to break the sequence of operations. That is, when an interrupt occurs, then it stops the execution of the program. That is, it stops the execution of the instructions. It breaks the sequence of execution of instruction, and then it goes for execution of another program or another subroutine. We called it as an ISR, interrupt service routine. So ISR is an interrupt service routine. So when interrupt occurs, then it stops the current execution and then starts executing another program called ISR. So after executing this ISR, interrupt service routine, again the program, the CPU is going to come back to the execution of the main program. So this is an interrupts. Now from where these interrupt occurs, these interrupts, it occurs from three different sources. So one is that NMI. So NMI is a non-maskable interrupt. So this is especially used in a power failure conditions. So and another interrupt is INTR. So INTR is the interrupt request pin. So through which any IO devices can request the attention of the CPU. So any input and output devices can be connected, that are connected to the CPU, can interrupt the CPU through this INTR pin, and they gets the acknowledgement over the INTR acknowledgement pin. So these type of interrupts, that is the interrupt over the NMI or the INTR, these are all external interrupts or the hardware interrupts. And the other interrupt is the software interrupt. So the other interrupt is software interrupt, that is the execution of the instruction called as INT type N. So INT type N, where N value you can have it from 0 to 255. That is in 8086 we have 256 interrupts. So you can number the interrupts, the software interrupts from INT 0 to INT 255. So 255 interrupts are possible. So execution of this INT instruction, like execution of INT 0 or INT 1 or INT 2 instructions. So execution of these instructions, they interrupt the CPU to perform some specific task. And then another source of the interrupt is that due to some error conditions in the 8086, for example, when you divide a large number by a small number, or when you divide a number by 0, in such cases it generates an interrupt called as divide by 0 interrupt. So it generates an interrupt called divide by 0 interrupt. So that is another source of interrupt. So interrupt is a signal that stops the execution of the current program and then allows the execution of another program called ISR. And these interrupt can be generated through the software or through the hardware pins. You can use NMI or NTR pin, and also due to some internal conditions in the 8086 some errors may be generated, like divide by 0 error. Now let us look at the applications of this interrupt. So here we are looking at one of the application of the interrupt, that is the keyboard. So here for understanding the importance of the interrupt, the polling is also explained. So polling method, so how you read the keyboard keys over the key values over the keyboard. So either you can do it by a polling method or interrupt method. So what happens in a polling method is CPU executes some program, so to continuously check the keyboard status. So for the keyboard press, so whenever a keyboard press is detected, then it reads the data. Otherwise it just keeps on executing that program, that is it continuously there in a loop. So that is what happens in a polling. So for a polling, the CPU has to continuously execute the program, whereas for interrupt it is quite different. The CPU can execute any other program until a key press is detected. It is quite different from that. Whereas in the case of polling, the CPU has to continuously execute that same program itself, even though the key press is not detected. But in the case of interrupt, the CPU can execute any other program until a key press is detected. So when a key press is detected, then it generates an interrupt to the CPU. So it has a keyboard controller called as 8279. So 8279 is a keyboard controller interface to the 8086. So by using that, you can generate an interrupt to the CPU. So the CPU then accepts the interrupt and then reads the data over the keyboard, and then it returns to the execution of the interrupted program. That is the main program. So likewise, CPU can serve many number of devices at the same time with the help of interrupt. So generally a processor with high interrupt capability is most suitable to operate many number of operations. So here we are looking at an example of that polling versus interrupt. So this is how the interrupt works. When a key press is detected, then a keyboard controller will send an interrupt to the CPU. So you can see the direction that when a keyboard and a key is pressed, then it sends a signal to the keyboard controller. From there it goes to the CPU. So whenever a key press is detected, then the CPU responds back through the INT acknowledgement pin to the keyboard, and then reads the value of the keyboard. And then if you look at the polling method, so in this polling method, the CPU continuously reads the value of the keyboard controller. So you can see that CPU is reading the data so that it is executing the program to check that the key status for a key press. So if a key press is detected here, then the CPU reads the value. Otherwise the CPU goes on continuously execute the program for checking the keyboard status. So another example of this another example of this interrupt is controlling the robot. So you can control the robot that has some sensors placed over it. So the sensors works to detect the obstacles or the line, and then they makes a turn in case an obstacle is detected. So that is the example that we are going to consider for the interrupt application. So let us see that with the help of a polling and interrupt method. So in the case of polling, the robot moves forward in a predefined unit, and then it checks the sensor values. So it is not continuously in a polling method. The robot cannot move continuously. It has to move forward and then wait and then check the sensor values. So if the sensor values are detected, that means the obstacle is detected, then the sensor value reading is there, then that is sensor values are changed, then it has to turn. That means the obstacle has detected, so it has to turn, and then it has to go back to the main program and then move forward again. In case if no obstacle has detected, then it does nothing, then again it moves forward again. So again it moves forward, and again it has to check the sensor value. so it cannot move continuously to the forward. Again it has to check the sensor value. So this process is a continuous process. Whereas in a case of interrupt, the robot is continuously moving forward until it is interrupted by the sensor. So if the sensor is found say obstacle, then if sensor some values are found, then it interrupts the robot, that is it interrupts the robot processor that an obstacle has detected. So in such case, if an obstacle has detected, then interrupt is received from the sensor, then it does the predefined operation. So like move the robot left or right, do some other tasks if a obstacle has detected, and then execute that interrupt service routine to take the left or right or a jump or do some operation. And then after finishing that interrupt service routine, then again it returns to the main program, and then that is it returns to the forward loop, and then continue to move in forward direction. So this is the main difference between the polling and interrupt. So interrupt technique is more popularly used. So that the next one is the processing of interrupts by the 8086. So let us look at the processing of interrupts by the 8086. So this is already that we have seen an interrupt. So interrupt breaks the sequence of operation, and this stops the execution of the main program, and then it returns to the, that means it goes to the execution of the interrupt service routine, and then return to the main program after the completion of the ISR. So that is the interrupt. So let us see that how the interrupt is processed. So you can see that this is the main program. So the execution of the main program, and then an interrupt occurs. So while executing the main program and an interrupt occurs, then it does the following tasks. So that is, it has to store the data related to the main program in the stack memory. So with the help of a push instruction, and it reloads that values, that is it gets back that value, retrieves that value with the help of a pop instruction. So here you are looking at something called that is done in this over the stack, that is pushing the flag value, pushing the CS value and IP value. Okay, this is done over the stack memory. So the first thing that it is doing is pushing the flag register value. So flag register value, it is having different flags like carry flag or parity flag, zero flag. There's different flag conditions. So after executing some instructions in the main program, then few of the flags may be affected, or all of the flags may be affected. So the flag status need to be stored into the stack memory. So by using this instruction, it stores that value, flag register value, into the stack, and then it clears the interrupt flag, so that the interrupts are disabled, and then the trap mode is also disabled, TF, and then it pushes the CS and IP values, that is the code segment, and CS and IP values are the code segment and instruction pointer values. So they helps the get to the last instruction of the main program. So and then it fetches the addresses of the interrupt service routine to be executed. So it fetches that ISR address from the interrupt vector table IVT. So interrupt vector table is a memory location where the addresses of all the ISRs are stored. So it goes to that interrupt vector table and then gets the ISR address, and then starts executing the ISR. So on the completion of the ISR, it executes an instruction called as IRET, iReturn. So on the execution of iReturn instruction, it pops the values of CS, IP, and then flag values, and then it returns to the main program and then starts executing from there. So this is how the interrupt is processed in the 8086. So the same thing is explained here. So it first pushes the flag values onto the stack by decrementing the stack pointer value by 2. Stack pointer is a register that is used to hold the address of the top of the stack memory. So while pushing the stack, it decrements the address by 2 because the flag register value is a 16-bit value. So the address is decremented by 2, and then it clears IFTF, and then it decrements again stack pointer by 2 and then loads the CS value, and then again it decrements the stack pointer by 2 and then loads the IP value, and then fetches the ISR address from the interrupt vector table. So it has to go to the IVT interrupt vector table for fetching the interrupt service routine addresses. So this is the IVT interrupt vector table. So it is showing the IVT for 255 types of interrupts. So this is type 0 interrupt, and whose address is 50H, and then type 1 interrupt whose address is 404H. So similarly for each type of interrupt, the address is shown here, and all these interrupts, they are dedicated interrupts. So you can see divide error, single step, non-maskable interrupt, breakpoint interrupt, overflow interrupt. These are all dedicated interrupts, all 5 interrupts. And then the 5th interrupt to the 31 type of interrupts, these are all reserved by the Intel for the further development of the 8086 processor. And then from 32 to the rest 255, they are available for the user. So and their addresses are shown. So the highest address is 03FCH to 3FFH. This is the last addresses of the interrupt vector table. So in each and every address you can find the ISR value, ISR CS and IP values. So you can calculate the addresses of the each type of interrupt. That is, you can multiply by 4 to get the address. That is, each type of interrupt takes 4 memory locations to store the CS and IP values. So you can see that here interrupt vector table, interrupt number is shown here, interrupt 0, 1, 2, 3 and so on. INT-FF, FF stands for 255 is the maximum value. So 0 to FF, 256 interrupts in total. And then whose physical addresses are shown here, that is what for type 0 interrupt, the address is 50H, and for interrupt 1 it is 404H, and interrupt 2 it is 408H, and then the last interrupt the value is 003FCH. And then an example is shown here that explains the interrupt vector table address calculation. You can see for each interrupt the address is difference is only 4. So you can multiply the type of interrupt, the number of the interrupt by 4, you will get the address of the interrupt. The physical address calculation of the interrupt vector table is shown here. For example, you want to calculate the vector address, the ISR address for the INT-12H, then you multiply it with 4, and then you will get the value 30H here in hexa. And so the physical address ranges from here 30 to 33, actually it's not 34, 33. So 30 to 33 addresses where the CS and IP values of INT-12H is located. Similarly, INT-8H, for INT-8H 8 into 4, you need to multiply the interrupt type number by the value 4. So 8 into 4 is the value 32, that is in decimal, and you need to take it in hexa, you will get 20H. So the addresses are from 000, 20H to 23H. So in these memory addresses you can find the values of CS and IP for INT-8H. So likewise for any number of interrupt, any type of interrupt, you can calculate the ISR address by simply multiplying it with 4. So here let us see the difference between interrupt and call instructions. So by using call instruction you can go to any memory location or the available in the 8086, whereas by using interrupts you can go to only the memory location of the ISR, and at any point of time in the program you can use the call instruction. Similarly, interrupt can be come at any point of time, either externally or internally, and then this call, it cannot be masked or disabled, whereas interrupt can be masked. You can mask the interrupt by using IF flag. So disabling the IF mask the INTR pin, and similarly the call instruction automatically saves the CS IP values, whereas the interrupt also that is INT interrupt pin also saves the values of CS IP and flags. So everything will be saved in the stack memory. And then from coming back from the call instruction, you are going to use a RET instruction. So RET is a return instruction. By executing this instruction you can return to the called program. And then in INT you need to use IRET instruction to pop the values of CS, IP and flag values from the stack memory. and then return to the main program. Thank you.